press go live, and then I'm going to quickly expand our screen all the way. All right, so we're going to go live. Blink. Hey everybody, welcome to a super special episode of Fab Fit Friday. I'm here with my friend Trish from the Creative Costume Academy, and I can't wait for you to meet her. I can't wait for you to hear about all the amazing things she does, all her fitting things, her costuming background. It's going to be so exciting. So I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to let Trish introduce herself.
There we are. I think I have a little bit of a delay. Okay. Hi. Sorry, I'm watching too because I want to see.
Oh, there is a delay. There is a delay. That's going to be a little tricky, but we can do it.
Hi, Jen. So my name is Tricia. I call myself your pattern nerd friend. That's how I introduce myself to Jen when we met. What's that?
Oh, he was telling me not to lean on my table because see, I do this and then I shake. So he told me, my husband's, he's monitoring us to make sure we're doing a good job.
Okay. That's sweet of him.
Yes.
My handle here and on all socials is Creative Costume Academy. The reason for that is I come from 20 plus years making costumes for big theatrical productions. So that's where all of my pattern making knowledge has come from. That's why I'm a big proponent of pattern making. It's helped me in my career. And then also that translates to fitting. So I got to take a class from Jennifer at the ASG National Conference this year. It was amazing. And we just became fast friends. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here and just talk about fitting, my favorite subject, pattern making and fitting.
Right.
Love it.
So exciting. Well, let's just stop and say hi to Ann. Hi, Ann. Hi, DIYer girl.
Hi,
Mary, welcome. Ooh, So Much Fashion has joined.
And Sue is here. Oh, I need to turn up my volume a little bit.
Oh. Well, I'm glad they didn't say that to me. That's been my perennial problem, having a quiet audio, and I finally figured it out. Well, my husband finally figured it out, so glad no one's telling me to speak up here. Sandra, good afternoon. Sue Spellman, Jenna and Trish, great to see you together. Julie from Colorado, welcome, ladies. Well, this is so fun. Yay. All right, so
very fun.
I know. So I was teaching my Great Rub-Off class, and that's the class that Tricia joined me for. And right away, she attracted my attention. She had like this cool outfit on, and she just looked so cool. And then I was trying to show how I rub off a dart, and she had another way to rub off a dart, and she shared it with the class, and I will tell you, it's much better than my way. So I'm updating my workbook, actually, courtesy of Tricia's technique. So that's, and then she ran around and she helped students. It was a big class. I had a full class of 24 students, so she started helping out in the class. It was so exciting, and I got to chat with her for a while, so I know her background. So I want her to tell us, like, where did she come from, because I'm in a bubble of sewing and she came from a completely different bubble. So tell us about it.
Absolutely. And I want to say that when we were looking at how to rub off the dart, because I've actually taught a similar class in my membership as well. So I was like, do you want to, like, can I show you my way? Because that's the thing, is that I love learning everybody does a different way, depending on where you come from. And so I showed her my way, and we were both like nerding out on like, ooh, that's cool, like we were high-fiving, like we're just having fun, and that's, I think, why we connected so well on that. But yeah, my background, so I have also, this is a whole new world for me, like American Sewing Guild. I didn't even know about that. That didn't even exist in my world until like earlier this year. Somebody had told me about that, or actually I guess it was late last year, and I was like, oh, let me find out about this. And the whole DIY kind of online sewing community that is here and robust and awesome. I love it. But all of that was new to me because I have been in my own little bubble of theater and, theatrical productions. And it's a very different world. It's a very different world than like fashion. So I have another pattern making friend. She comes from the fashion background. So I just, I've been sewing since I was a kid. I learned from my grandparents and my grandmothers and my mom they all sewed and all of that. And then you guys, this is my favorite time of year. It's Halloween. There's costumes. That was always a big deal in my house, in my family. We always celebrated Halloween. So costumes, dressing up, and then just, that's kind of where the love started, is to be able to make whatever I want. And I didn't know that people didn't just like make things. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, we'll throw something together. We'll figure it out. So kind of, I always had that attempt. And then I started sewing for myself more, because I know it's always hard to tell on the internet, but I am almost 6 feet tall, and it's all in my legs. I literally, kid you not, cannot go into the store and buy myself pairs of pants that are long enough. So I started, wanting to learn to make myself clothes that I wanted. And then when it went to school, but I really didn't want to go into fashion design. I just didn't feel like that was my calling. And I do have a unique style, and I don't feel the need to like follow trends or say that my style is for everyone. I feel like everyone should express themselves how they need to express themselves through clothing. Like, I just find that like fun for me. So I knew fashion wasn't really the direction I wanted to go in. And I fell in love with theater and kind of acting and stuff like that in high school. But then I didn't want to be an actress. I'm like, I'm not that good. I'm not like competitive enough. I just enjoy it. So then I'm like, well, what do I do? Like, what after high school, I'm like, what do I do with my life? So I took a break and I traveled, and that's where I landed on costume design or costume making. And somebody just kind of happened to say that to me one day. And I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. Because then I can make stuff and still be involved in theater, but not be on stage. And costuming's so fun, because you can really just, it's not like normal clothes, right? Like, I'm asked to make the most ridiculous things, which is fun. It's like a fun pattern puzzle for me, something to challenge and figure it out. So once I decided that, I went to school for it. For a little bit, I didn't even finish school because I got offered a tour to go off on tour, and followed that dream. But it's really, other than when I was in high school and I worked as a coffee barista, working in theater and making costumes is the only job I've ever had. It's been my full-time career for most of my adult life. I have transitioned now and added, like, we're still making costumes. I still have a costume shop. I have my own business now as well. But I've added the teaching side. So I have a different approach to pattern making and fitting and making things from the theater perspective, which is a very different, unique world. And I mean, my clients consist of, we have Disney is one of my big clients right now. I've made stuff for Blue Man Group, Cirque du Soleil. I lived in Las Vegas for 11 years. So we're talking big productions. And I've, of course, done the, community theater and all of that too. So that's where I come from. So this whole DIY and like home sewing community, I had no idea. And social media, I was like against social media altogether for like until about 4 years ago, because I just didn't have time. Like, there's always stuff going on and needing to be done yesterday. So I've just been living in that world, and this opened my eyes to like a whole new cool community. I love it. And meeting like cool people like Jen.
I want to hear about what the most ridiculous thing you've ever been asked to make in costuming.
Yeah, that's a hard one. There's a lot out there. The thing is, there's lots of variables to consider, because you want to consider the performer's comfort level, and what they have to do in said costume. Mm-hmm. But then so it's always like what the performer wants and what the designer wants is often a fun battle to go on, and that we are in the middle of. So it's trying to always find that comfort level. But yeah, I've been asked to make, and then for me as a pattern maker, I kind of love that challenge, because, I'm asked to make these insect girls that have to look sexy, and cool. So how do you do that? Like, where are the proportions? Where do you, draw the lines and the style lines? And then there was another one that we were asked to make for that same. So I do these big, I don't know if you guys know, it's a young crowd thing, but Electric Daisy Carnival, it's a big EDM festival. that happens, 3-day festival that happens in Las Vegas every year. It started in LA. So we've made, up until COVID, the main stage dancers. So there's dancers on the big, huge main stage, and they wear these ridiculous costumes, all 6 of them, in the summer in Las Vegas. So that's what the insects were for. And then like the next year, and so they have to be big, larger than life to even be seen on the stage. And then there's these tufted couch. They were like, let's do tufted heart couch cushion girls. And I'm like, cool, yeah, that's easy to make these little dancer girls look sexy when we're making them look like tufted cushions.
I love it. That's
so
cool.
playing with proportions, and then also a lot of times in my business and in my industry, it's like, okay, yeah, these are going to be made for these 6 girls, so I'll get you loose measurements that I don't know who's taking these measurements for these 6 girls, but then after we do the Las Vegas show, we're going to travel to, Florida, Orlando, California, and then we're going to get 6 different girls in every city. So can they be somewhat adjustable? And so not only did they have the tufted couch cushion, like unitard or leotards that we made for them, but they had big heart tufted like backdrop of a heart, and it lit up going around the heart. So yeah, I worked with another guy that I had met at Lion King. He made the hearts for me. How did they, like, we had to create backpacks that they wore under their costumes and the whole 9 yards. So sizing's always a thing, crazy shapes. But I'll tell you, the most crazy costume, I think, the most complicated costume I ever had to make was not for a real person. And anytime you make something for a mannequin, it adds a whole other element of difficulty, because a person can wiggle into clothing, mannequins cannot. So the way that you have to put on, say, a jacket or a pair of pants is a little different. And so we were asked to make upside down monkey statue costumes that had to be, so they had tails and big hands and feet, and big monkey heads, and they were covered with fake flowers, and they had to be wearing 17th century coats. They were upside down, and they had to look like they were blowing in the wind.
Oh my Lord.
And they were removable. So there were 2 sets. There were 5 monkeys. 2 of them were upside down. The middle one was a giant ballerina. So we had like a 4-foot wide tutu that we had to make for her.
Wow.
So
I love it. Oh my goodness, I love it. That's so cool.
Because of understanding patterns, like you can create any shape, right?
Yeah.
You can create any shape if you really understand pattern making.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm such a proponent and a lover of pattern making. So if I can make an upside down 17th century coat for a monkey, I can help you make a shirt that you want to wear that fits your body nicely.
I love that. Oh my gosh. So what challenges, or maybe not challenges, but what things did you encounter, like when you were switching from doing costuming to then teaching people how to fit patterns? Like, are you using like the big 4 patterns, or, like what were your, I don't want to say challenges because maybe you didn't have any, I don't know, but like what were your experiences when you started to shift towards more pattern fitting for garments?
Started teaching in Las Vegas, and it was a request from several of my peers because there wasn't a lot of schooling available in Las Vegas to learn more about pattern making and whatnot. And I just have always loved it. So I've continued to study like Shingo Sato. I've continued to study on my own, just out of pure curiosity. But how it works in the theater world is there's generally 2 positions in wardrobe. So there's the dressers, who are hired to steam and iron all the clothing, get it ready for the show, and then they are the ones doing the actual quick changes. When the actor runs backstage, they need to change clothes. They're helping them get in and out and preset for the next thing. So that's called a dresser position. And then you have the technician. So the technician position would do any repairs on a daily basis. They would do fittings for new costumes to go into the show. They would do builds sometimes. So that position, the technician, is often paid a little bit more than the dresser because there's more of the dresser may need to know how to like hand sew, but for the most part, they don't have to know how to sew. They're mainly maintaining the costumes. So there were a lot of dressers who wanted, and I was hired as a technician when I was brought to Las Vegas. So there were a lot of dressers that were like, hey, how do I get better in my skills to move up into being a technician so I can get paid more? And so I was like, they want to learn about pattern making. I'm like, I don't know where to send you because there's not really anything here. So I started doing these pattern making classes for that. And so my market was to market to theater people who wanted to move up. And when I started, like, so I had my freelance business, and then I was working on shows, and then now I'm going to start teaching. So like, how do I fit all this into my life? And then how do I fit it into everyone else's? I always assume that everyone's like insanely busy like I am because we all have life. So I was like, how do I didn't want to start with drafting a sloper, which is how I learned, and how when I was in school, that's how we learned. Because I felt like that was, when I was in school, I felt like that was a really complicated place to start by plotting points and measurements and all of that. So I was like, I don't want to start there. Or if we did that, so I was like, let's do a 2-day, like a weekend kind of class, like a quick little boot camp kind of thing. And I was like, we would learn how to draft a sloper, and then at the end of the 2 days, you would have a sloper that you would know what to do with. And I'm a huge fan of, like, I want to give you knowledge that you're going to go and use right away. So I was like, let's focus on the principles of pattern making, like moving a dart, adding fullness, because really those principles apply to every pattern, like a commercial pattern that you go and buy in the store, or a sloper that you can get. And so that's where I started, because I felt like at least if you had a pattern that was kind of close, then you can start making cool designs. Like you could start changing up and using it right away. So that's how I approached it. And when I was teaching those classes, I also got connected with the school district. I guess, and they like have money set aside for education. So they were all the fashion school, high school teachers in the area. And so that was in my first class. I had like half theater people and half like high school teachers, and I had never taught anything before. So I'm like, let's see how this goes. And they loved it by the end, because they were like, oh my gosh, I know exactly how I can use this. And I've had people from those classes like go and make their own wedding dress, using, and what I did was I gave them a half size 8 sloper to start, and I gave them a full size 8 sloper, and that's what we used for some of the examples. Quickly after like my second or third class, people are like, I'm not a size 8. How do I get it to be my size? And I'm like, well, just add some seam allowance and do a fitting. And they're like, say what now? And I'm like, right, you don't do fittings all day long like I do and make pattern adjustments. Okay, so we'll do a fitting class. So that's where I started. I did a fit your sloper class, so that if you took that class and by the end of that class you could have a sloper that fit you, so a basic bodice and a basic skirt that fit you, then if you took my Pattern Making 101 class, then you could play around and make different designs like that. So that was a very popular class, and I learned a lot in that class about, just how to kind of distill it down to make all the things that I had been doing for a lot of my life understandable. So we did start with slopers, but I would give them the slopers. But my thing is, you don't have to start with a sloper. You can start all of these principles that I'm talking about, moving darts and, adding fullness and contouring things. It can be applied to any pattern. So it can be a purchase pattern, or it can be a sloper. But you don't have to make the sloper from scratch. You could purchase them. Like I sell basic slopers just for this reason, or they're included when they sign up to either of my memberships. Or you can take a tried and true pattern that you love, and that can be your sloper. Like you. So it's basically, let's not start with the plotting points and doing a bunch of math part of pattern making, which is valuable, which some people love. I love it. But it's just not for everyone, and you don't really understand what you're doing. You don't really understand what you're doing yet. So I was like, let's start with like learning some cool things, like making it really fun and easy, because my whole thing is I want you to be excited by how powerful this is and like all the cool things you can do with pattern making. And if I start with somewhere where you're frustrated and annoyed and it's not working for you, you're going to give up before you get to the cool part. So that's always been my approach to to sharing and teaching about pattern making. And pattern making and fitting kind of go hand in hand. So, and I learned that teaching in person, and then as I've taught more and more, I've kind of figured out how to simplify it as much as possible, and also share kind of my process that I've learned in theater, because there's no time. It's like, this has to fit perfectly, and it has to look exactly the way the designer wants it to look, and it has to, be able to work on the body on stage, and it has to be figured out like yesterday. So that's kind of the process that I share, is what I do in those situations to get at least close.
So now I know why we clicked right away, because that's been my basic philosophy as well, like taking things and trying to simplify them. So like I take different adjustments, or I take different fitting processes, and I'm constantly trying to make them easier for people to follow. So I think that's very, very cool. Like I just did on Tuesday, Fit Tip Tuesday was how to rotate a dart. And actually while I was doing it, I was thinking of you. I was like, oh, I know Tricia's going to think this is a cool topic.
That's where we start.
That's
where we start. That's my favorite. I have a catchphrase that people who know me, one thing I say all the time, in fact, it was a Tricky Thursday that went out last week. It's all about the dart. Like, if you understand what a dart can do, that is like the key to it all. So I always start with that. That's like my favorite thing.
Like, you don't have to sew it closed when you move it. You
don't have to sew it closed. A dart can be gathers, a dart can be pleats, a dart can be just extra space. But the more you understand, you can understand it.
So I'm just going to say hi to a few more people. We have Miss J says hello. Dorothy says hello. Happy to meet Tricia. Myra from London, welcome. Bun Hells sings Legacy says LOL, make it sexy, when you were talking about the heart tough pillows.
Make a heart pillow.
And then she also chimed back in and said, I don't mind doing math, but discovering quickly that my measurements lie, figuring out how they lie has been a journey. That's true. That is so funny.
And our bodies change.
Oh, they do. They change.
Yeah.
And they change when you're sitting and standing. Never mind changing because
of... And just, I think, especially for women going through our cycles, like our bodies change.
Yep.
All the time. So
it's always it's always a challenge. So
understanding fitting, and that's what my big thing is recently. Excuse me. Is it's so important, and it's not taught enough, really, in my opinion. Like, it's not talked about enough.
No, and I really think having, as a fitting teacher, having that background in drafting, like you said, they go hand in hand. So, like, as I'm drafting something, I'm also thinking about how it's going to fit, and I try to make shapes that will fit a broad range of women. So, like, I know some designers in small pattern companies, if you look at the designer, that's who the pattern is going to fit. I really try not to do that. Like, I have to, I have to fit my own patterns to myself, because if I made them fit me, not everybody's a linebacker, with the giant bust and all that stuff.
Well, that's the thing, and that's the thing that really gets to me the most is we're all uniquely different, like every one of us. I mean, I've got freakishly long legs. I'm a tall girl, which my proportions are a lot bigger than people think, just because I'm a tall girl, and like, you're a tall girl as well. So, and then we just all have unique shapes, and for as a pattern designer, I'm sure that's a challenge, because it's really hard to, and I think that's why the majority of ready to wear doesn't fit. It's made for the average person, which doesn't exist, or it's definitely not the majority of people. Majority of people are all uniquely different. So I really feel like you need to understand fitting at least a little bit in order to be successful, even if you're making your own clothing. And fitting, I do think, comes from, it's like when you're making adjustment, when you're altering clothes to make them fit you, that's the beginning of pattern making. Like, because you're then already making pattern adjustments. So the more you understand, and that's what people would always ask me, like, I don't really want to make my own patterns. I want to learn how to make things fit me better. And I'm like, well, in understanding pattern making, you will be able to make clothes fit you better, because that's exactly what you're doing.
So does this mean something to you? Julie says, cut to and through, Tricia.
Cut to but not through. It's another catchphrase.
Yep.
Cut to but not through. So you have the hinge.
To make a pivot.
In my video, she's one of my students.
Oh, that's so funny. And then, I don't know, I want to start talking about this. I wanted to start talking about it when we first got on, but I'm being so patient. But somebody said, Snoop819 says, looking forward to Fitabulous next week. What is Fitabulous? Tell us.
So, okay. Only the best, most awesome fitting party that exists. I'm a little biased, but so if you have been curious about fitting, and because I think fitting is such an important thing to talk about, to teach about, that's why I love Jen and that she's sharing regularly about fitting tips. We do a boot camp. I only do it a couple times a year, so it's called Fitabulous Fit Boot Camp, FFB, and that is fun, to come up with a fitabulous, because you want your fitabulous fit. You want to look fitabulous.
Yes, you do.
So it's a boot camp that I host a couple times a year, and it's completely free. But it's just a big party, really. But it's 5 days, completely free. It's only available for a limited time. But it's every day we go through one of my 5 steps. I call it my CCA method, Creative Costume Academy method, of doing a fitting. So it's going from the beginning, like we teach from the beginning, starting with your pattern. So if you're going to make something from scratch, how to set that up for your fitting, and then how to do a fitting. And that part, even if you don't want to start with the pattern, doing the fitting, like the order of how I'm doing a fitting, the order of what I'm looking at, how to make adjustments, what you're pinning out, what you're paying attention to, and then going into how do you take that information that you found in the fitting and transfer that to your pattern. So that is the 5 steps, like in a nutshell, that we teach throughout the 5 days of the boot camp. And so because it's a unique take of what I've learned of how to do it in my theater career, it's something that people aren't used to, this method, and it's a lot simpler. It takes a lot of the question mystery, like what adjustments do I need, where do I have to do them, how much do I have to do. It's answers all those questions. Everybody, this is the system that I use. It's the process that I use every time I have to make a costume for a customer, every time I have to make something that I want for myself that I'm going to be using precious fabric for. And it's something it's proven. It's worked in my career. I've used it, and it's kind of what I've developed in how I make costumes. And it's not something that a lot of people know. So we have a boot camp where I can share all of this with you, but it's only available for a limited time. It starts on Monday. Actually, our Facebook group opens today. So those of you who are signed up, I hope you've already requested to join the Facebook group. So we do have a Facebook group to support the community. You don't have to participate in the group, but it is a lot of fun. We have over 3,000 people. We have 3,200 people signed up right now. My goal is to get 6,000 people, because I want everyone to have this opportunity to learn about fitting. And we have a little scavenger hunt. We have you're connecting with people all over the world, learning about this very important thing, but we have fun with it. We have fun with it. We're not here to you should do this or it only works this way. And then we have a live. So the training videos are emailed out to you. So if you don't want to join the group, you don't have to. You can still get all the knowledge. And then every day for the 5 days, I go live in our group, and you can ask me any question about anything. You have access. I say you have access to my pattern brain, and I'm happy to share and answer any questions. And yeah, and it's just people have connected in there and continued friendships beyond the boot camp. It's just a really, really fun time. And so that'll kicks off on Monday. We have a welcome party on Sunday. So I'm trying to get the word out. Come join us.
There's a link in the description below, so you can click right on it and go join that. That sounds like so much fun. You know, and it's funny that not funny, but it's interesting you're talking about relationships, because I know I have ladies who follow along in my lives, and then they chit chat, you know, in the chat with each other. They realize they live near each other and they become friends. It's so much fun. I love stuff like that.
So wonderful.
I know.
Well, it like so many. That's one thing that I really started to learn getting into the online space and socials is that people, you know, when you're trying to learn fitting, where do you go? You can follow Jen and take her classes, and there's a few people out there teaching. But even when you go to like fashion school, they don't teach you how to do a fitting on someone. So what I've learned is from my experience in my career, and I'm trying to like share this with you. But on top of that, so you're learning that, or you're learning pattern making, but how many people in your life, in your world, like that you see every day, are going to get how cool it is to rotate a dart, where you're like, look, I just rotate, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, my sleeve fits perfectly. Like who in your life, like my spouse, he's like, yeah, that's great. Well, do you like it? You know, like that's the thing. Whereas if you can say to your friends who are also doing it, you know, and maybe they are all the way across the world, or maybe they're neighbors and you get to connect with them, but they're going to get it. Like, that's the cool part, is they're going to get it. Is they're going to be like, oh my God, that is so cool for you that you finally were able to do that.
All right. I just want to stop. And a couple people said that they wished, they had, you know, come at the beginning. They missed the beginning. They're late. Don't worry, because this will stay in, you know, on my channel. You can come back and watch it again later. So if you miss the beginning, don't worry. And then Jill would like to know if you do fitting for men.
We do. The process that I'm going to be sharing with you is the same process I do for any project, any person, whether I'm making an insect, whether I'm fitting a man, a woman, an upside down monkey statue. It's the process that works, you know, that I'm teaching, and kind of the order of what you're looking at things. So yes, it's applicable to children. And I know some of you guys came late, but my experience in making costumes, I have fit little tiny dancers, I fit acrobat people, I fit singers, opera singers. I've had little people clients. You know, the wide range of body types and shapes and sizes, male and female. It all is applicable. So yes, absolutely.
All right. And then just jot down that Carrie signed up, but her membership says it's pending. So just check her later for that.
So yeah, Carrie, you're probably talking about the Facebook group. So the Facebook group didn't open until today. So actually, just about an hour and a half ago, my guy started accepting, because it's a private group and we're talking about something that can be very personal. Everybody who you have to request and put in your email, and we will double check to make sure you are signed up to the boot camp, so that you're going to get all the information you need. And only people who are signed up in the boot camp get access to the group, so that it's a safe space for everyone. So that's probably what's happening. It will come, and if not, personal message me or email us at hello@creativecostumeacademy.com, and we will help you get in.
Yay. This is so exciting. Jill says, wow, that's awesome. Thanks. Yay.
Yay. Yeah, and I mean, and we have, you know, non-binary students in my membership as well. So these are processes and techniques that work for, honestly, you know, pattern making. It's so funny. My man, we met in theater, and he's a woodworker and a metal worker. He knows a little bit about sound and technology and electricity. Like, he's my everything guy. But he always says, like, with what I do, that it lends very much to flat metal, like, what do we call it? Oh my God, I'm just blank. But like metal sheeting, because honestly, all pattern making is taking a 2D flat thing and putting it on a 3D shape.
Yes.
So it's the process of what do those shapes need to look like to get the end result you're trying to get on the 3D shape. So that's what pattern making is. It can be applied in so many different ways. So it really, once you understand it, that's why I say, like, I truly believe and know that I can make anything.
Yeah.
Like, if you ask me to make a tufted couch cushion girl, I can make that. I might have to play around with it a little bit, to figure it out. But I know with what I know that I'll be able to get it, because it's just making the right shape to create the right thing.
I offer private pants fitting, and I've had a few men sign up, and I want to tell everybody that, I mean, obviously there are differences in men and women's shapes, but
yes.
You'd be really surprised how close the final pattern shapes are. So I have man jeans, and I have my trouser pattern, I have a few other things, but the last time I worked with Josh, he wanted to do jeans, so I used my salvage denim jean pattern with just had straight side seams, and it was amazing how little I had to change that to get it to fit him. So I find that very interesting. And you're asking for pants, you're asking a tube of fabric to bend and move with you. So that's been my primary passion for the past year and a half, is really fine-tuning.
I love diving deep. I took a night and just dove deep. I just watched all of Jen's, like, that was my entertainment for the evening. It's so wonderful. If you guys haven't checked out all of her amazing videos on all of her pant fitting stuff, then you definitely should.
But the biggest thing was I was hesitant to take a male student, because I thought, I have never done a male student. And then I'm like, I'm going to try it. And after I tried it, and by the second time, I'm like, wow, this is really, you can use the same principles. So I can see where you can say, yep, your system will work. It'll work for men. It'll work for women. I think that's very, very cool. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I loved about you as well, Jen, and I think that is why we connected, is I feel like there's a stigma out there with pattern making and with fitting as well, that it's first of all, the information's been gate kept, I think, a lot by a lot of people, but also it's got this stigma around it that it has to be really hard and really serious, and it has to be done exactly this rigid way. And I knew that immediately being in your class, that you were not that way, and I don't teach that way as well. And I think that that's a big difference, and that's why we connected, because we're like, why does it have to be that way? It doesn't have to be that way. It can be a fun, enjoyable process. Yes. It can be fun, like, figuring it out, experimenting, like, it doesn't have to be this hard, like, strict, and rigid, unattainable thing. And,
and I share all my process too, but I always tell my students, if there's a way that you do it and you like that way, that is a good way. And if you want to, I like to pick and choose. So I'll be doing something, and I might insert something different into my process. So as a student, that gives you the opportunity to say, I've learned this, and this, and I'm going to combine it with that, and I'm going to try the thing I learned over there. And that's really, I think, how sewers can develop a easy, fun way, approachable way for them, because everybody learns differently. And I just want to do a couple more things here. Hold on. Bun Helsling's Legacy is saying, the part I have trouble with, I do steel armoring, is that the metal doesn't actually stretch when you hammer it. Playing around with how to figure out flat patterns to translate to 3D. So see, that's very interesting and very, very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you can, there are certain fabrics that you said you can hammer it to stretch and create, I know what he's talking about a little bit, where you can hammer it, and you're basically like stretching the material, stretching the metal to create a dome or a curved shape, which you can do. And you can, with some materials like wool and natural fibers, you can also do shaping and interesting things with heat. Instead of hammering, we use heat. So it's just a different application. But it's definitely translatable.
All right, and then Lynn Shepard wants to know, will your boot camp live streams be available later to watch? I'm traveling next week.
Yes. So, because we have people from all over the world, and that I wanted to make this accessible for everyone, as easy. And I know not everyone's into Facebook. That's why I'm like, you don't have to do Facebook. So the training that you get every day, you get a short video every day emailed to you. It's pre-recorded. It's not live, so you can watch it anytime that works for you. And there's also a PDF that goes with that video. So that goes straight to your inbox. You watch it when it works for you. And those replays are available. So like, even if you started later in the week, you would still be able to watch the replays for every day previous. The live streams that we do in the Facebook group, the live Q&A sessions, those are also saved in the Facebook group. And I'm going to try to be extra, because I want it all to be really easy to find. We're going to try to save it to a guide so that it's really easy to find all the lives in one area. And there's a welcome video as well. So those are also saved every single day. So you can go and view those as well whenever it works for you. Because I know people work. We've got people in different time zones all over the world. So I understand that. So the boot camp is only available for a limited time. So we do have, next week is when we kick it off, and that's when everything's happening in real time. But the replays and the Facebook group will stay open until November 3rd. So there's actually like a 2-week long period. Hopefully that works for you. And if for some reason this is horrible timing and not meant to be, we will be shutting everything down after November 3rd. But I will do it again, probably next spring. We'll do it again. But so yes, there are replays for a limited time, and you do have to be signed up in order to be getting those emails and the links to where everything are.
All right. Well, Bun has another thing to say.
Okay.
Can you see the comment? Because I don't want to pronounce it wrong.
Bouging. I don't know how that works. But I guess that's what you call it when you hammer in the shape. Yeah. A stump over with a dish carved out of it. Doing fancy bra cups was very enlightening. Oh, so interesting.
That's kind of cool. I'm fascinated. I always want to, like, every now and then in Vogue, I'll see, like, a dress made out of, like, little pieces of metal that were hitched together, or, like, those 6-pack of Coke plastic rings.
Yeah, the tab.
The tabs, okay. Too. I've seen the tabs. But it's like mixing multimedia or mixed media, I think, could be kind of cool.
See, I love all that stuff. That's going to go into Pattern Con when that comes about. We can talk about that later, but...
Pattern Con. Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so Trish was like, at the conference, she's like, she goes, I came to the conference because I wanted to check it out, and I wanted to see how a conference was run and all the different things. And she's like, I'm thinking of having like a Pattern Con. And I was like, I said, I'd love to do Pattern Con. Would be amazing. So I'm on board for that if you need help, just so you know.
We're going into, after we get through boot camp and all the things next week, we're going into major planning for that. So yes, if you are a fan of pattern making already, this is going to be for, I lovingly call myself a pattern nerd. That's why I call myself your pattern nerd friend. If you guys weren't here in the beginning, I'm Trish, your pattern nerd friend. Wear that with pride. I am wanting to make pattern nerd like the cool thing.
The cool kids.
And the cool kids are the pattern
nerds. That's right.
We've got the power. It's just so powerful. It's like our superpower. And nobody really outside of like the sewing world even knows what that means. So I want to give us a space. I feel like this calling for some reason to create a space for us to come together and nerd out on all the cool pattern stuff, like what you're talking about. And not only that, but to highlight pattern makers, because the other part of creating PatternCon is PatternCon. I mean, if you think of all the fashion designers that you know that are amazing, Christian Dior, Yves Saint Laurent, or Dolce & Gabbana, all of these, Lagerfeld, the designers' names. They're not the ones creating the pattern. They have a whole team especially a pattern maker that is their right-hand person. I guarantee it. Do I know any of their names? No. And I'm a pattern maker.
Yeah.
Because they don't get the credit. You know, you have famous costume designers. They aren't the ones figuring out the pattern and making the pattern. They come up with the vision, which is important, of course, but they also have to have that person that helps them figure it out and turn that vision into reality. And they don't get it. Nobody even knows about them. Nobody even cares or knows. They think the designer does it all. And I'm like, no, it's time to celebrate how incredibly powerful that knowledge is.
I know.
And how powerful this skill is, and make it freaking cool so that everybody's like, yeah, I want to learn to be a pattern nerd too. So that's the whole kind of, you'll be hearing more about that, but that is my dream that I will be working on as well. Because I just want to share this with everybody.
So just one affirmation about signing up for your boot camp. Mary signed up and she said it was easy to sign up and it's already done. So she did it. And I just wanted to say, back before I started J Stern Designs, I wanted to start something like what I'm doing. And so I had 2 little girls, I was married, and I thought I could pull off going from Connecticut to New York and going to FIT and going to school. So I applied. And then when I got to my interview, I had all my sketches. And of course, I'm standing there with all the other students who were all like half my age, because I was already like 30, some low 30s. And so I'm looking at everybody else's sketches, and they literally look like beautiful artwork for magazines. I'm looking at my sketches, and I'm like... So when I went to the interview, though, the woman who interviewed me said this to me, and this always stayed with me. She's like, wow, she's like I got in, and she's like, but I can tell you understand how that has to get on the body, because you drew in the seams, you drew in the closures, and, you know, you see all this fantasy sketches, all these other students, and they have no concept of how to sew, how it's going to get on a body. So that's always been something that's stuck in my head, you know, so when you're talking about stuff like that, like, I'm like, oh, like, you know, I thought that was interesting.
Well, it's my job in my career, you know, and that's something even my family really never understood. They would always say that I was a costume designer. I said, no, I'm not a costume designer.
Yeah.
I can and have designed costumes, but I am the pattern maker, or they call it the draper, is the other term that's used in the costume world, the theater world. I work with designers, like in layman's terms, and like somebody said, like an architect and the engineer, right? So the designer's the architect, like comes up with the vision, and then I'm the engineer, like I'm a clothing engineer. I'm the figure it out girl.
Yes.
That's what pattern makers are. We figure it out. And the thing is, that's why I know for a fact, even without even really knowing or having any base, that all of those fashion designers that I named have their person, because every pattern maker is going to come to it with a different thing. And it's my job as a pattern maker working with designers to take that sketch, that fashion ethereal sketch that looks real pretty, that sells the idea, and figure out what do I have to do to make it look like that, to embody that feeling, that vision. It's funny. We have a costume contract right now that we're finalizing, and they had a picture. They actually had a picture of like cool crown and these like ethereal wings, and they said they hired this guy to make it for them, and they sent us some pictures of what he has created, and we're like, oh boy, that's not at all what you wanted, you know. So pictures can be interpreted, sketches can be interpreted in many different ways, and so it's once you find like your pattern maker that understands your aesthetic, like what you're trying to create, because different shapes and the way the pattern fits on the body is going to create a different feeling, you know, a different energy, especially when you're talking costumes. So I tend to work with the same designers, you know, because they're like, you get it. You get what I'm trying to create. Whereas somebody else might take that same sketch, that same fashion drawing, and create something completely different that is not at all what they're trying to execute. That's why I know that these fashion designers have their person or their team of people, because there's no way that they would just trust anybody, you know, and it's building that reputation. So
Well, Miss J is already saving in her piggy bank to come to Pattern Con. She's already starting
Yes!
her Pattern Con fund, so that's kind of cool. And then,
we're shooting for 2025. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're going to start really.
Well, so we have time to save. That's perfect. So,
Yes.
Brampton Gardner says it's like the designer bags. Michael Kors is not sewing those bags, but it's the same people that sit there and then swap out and sew $20 bags for Walmart. And because that's a thing, you know, designers come out with things and then everybody copies it and it gets. I mean, that's just how that works.
It is, yeah.
And Bun is back with fantasy clothing designs, never show seams, fantasy armor drawings, never have enough rivets.
Yes,
rivets,
yes, right? Like the fashion, like you probably, I've never been great at sketching. That was never been.
I suck.
I just,
so bad.
When I was in school, so I went to two different schools. I went to a fashion, or I went to a theater community college where it was a certificate program. I learned fashion and theater classes. So I had a mix. Like we had a makeup class and we had a theater history class, and then I'd have my pattern making class, and that's where I started to learn about that. So I have a textiles class. Didn't have any like general ed or anything, which was good for me because I was afraid I was going to get bored of school, and like I want to know stuff that I'm going to start using right away. That was my goal. And then I was like, that's where I discovered I loved pattern making. And then I went to LA Trade Tech, which is a sister school to FITM. We have a lot of the same teachers. I got to actually learn under Helen Joseph Armstrong, which if you guys don't know about her book, like I love that book. And then I got to learn from her, which was like, it was amazing.
That would be
amazing. It was so awesome. And she had the coolest class. She would have this. So the class was, we would come in and she would draw a sketch, like a technical sketch on the whiteboard. And our job, she was like, okay, how do we make this pattern? Or she would have it sewn up and she's like, okay, how do we make this? And it was always something unusual. You know, it wasn't like a basic shirt. And so we would have to it was like a pattern puzzle. And that helped me so much in my career because that's basically what I do when people come to me with an idea. And I'm like, how the heck am I going to do that? You know, that's what pattern making is. And then the next class, she would show us how to make that pattern. And we would have to sew the pattern. So you have to test out, you know, you learn. You're like, okay, I think this is what it looks like. And so it was so fascinating.
She has those in her textbook. I have probably 3 editions of that because I taught fashion design for a short period. And obviously that was the textbook. So every year when I would come back for the next year, they would give me a new textbook. So I have a really old edition. I have the newer one, and I have, I think, and I gave one of them away because I don't need 3. But the fact that you met her and took a class from her, that was like so heaven. Cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. So that was like, still, like, I love that moment, that celebrity moment. But then, so when I started that school, I was going to go for my AA to start, and we had like pattern making class. It was 4 days a week, 4 hours a day, like. And I was in hog heaven. That's where I was like, yeah, like all that. And I saw a lot of my students, and I had a base already to start with. Loved that class. That was like a semester. Then the next semester was sketching. Same thing, like 4 days a week. And I wanted to pull my hair out. I don't want to draw 20 different ruffles. I don't want to draw 20 different skirt shapes. Like, I know. It was so not my jam.
Painful.
And then I got offered to go out on tour with a Broadway show, and I'm like,
I think I would have taken that ticket too. Yeah.
So I get that. But going back to, is it Bun, with his metalworking and armor working, and this is why I love the cosplayers, like the cosplay world. I've never been a cosplayer, but you know, love of costumes, totally like get their thing. And I've never been to a Comic-Con. Like I would like to go see, I think I need to for PatternCon research. We can work that out. But I love to see what the cosplayers use as far as mediums. And I've used a lot of their stuff, like to create armor, using thermoplastics and things like that. And you do have more play with that, you know, because you can use heat or you can use hammering and stuff to create new shapes. Another material that works like that really well is leather. If you get leather wet and you mold it onto a shape, it can turn into a shape, and you can stretch it because it's an organic material as well. And so that's really cool, and playing with all of that. So I totally get like him. And then also hat making, millinery is a whole skill that we learn about in costuming as well. And when you when you're making hats, usually you start with for straw and felt, you start with a basic hood, like it's just a hood. And I've always wanted to do more of this, but I've done a little bit. And you have blocks, so you have shapes that are meant for making different hat shapes, like top hats or fedoras or things like that. And you dip or heat or wet the material, and then you form it with steam and with other things onto the shape. And so you are stretching. That's what I was saying, like with wool and different things like that, straw, you can make shapes. So it's not shaping with darts and seams like you have to do with fabric. But the more you understand about all of this, you can see what is possible. And that's what, I love what you said that about Jen. It's like, you kind of, what we offer as teachers, I think the better teachers, or the teachers that I think are received well by the students is like, this is how I do it, or this is what I've learned, but to also learn from them to okay, that's not making sense to you. Let me re-explain it in a different way that maybe come at a different angle. And then also to not be like, this is the only way. If you're able to get the thing, and that's the other thing we're going to talk about in the boot camp, is another saying of mine is, you're the boss.
Yeah.
If you want to change those seams, if you want to move that dart, if you want to take it in, there's no standard, has to be so far from, has to be in the, if that's what works on your body and you like how it works and that's how it feels good to you, go with that.
Yes.
That's the correct way. I think as teachers, that if we can express that to people who are learning from us, it empowers, you're the boss. You get to choose. Yeah. You're making the pattern. You're making the garment. You're making the adjustments. You get to choose what works best for you and your outcome that you're trying to achieve.
And I think pattern is never the boss. It's not not your job to fit into that pattern. It's the pattern's job to fit into you. That's one of my big things. Absolutely. Yes. It is never your body that needs to change. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It is the pattern and the fabric that need to be bossed around until it does what you want it to do, for sure. So, all right. So just a couple things, because we're getting close. Well, we don't have to leave exactly on time, but I just want to make sure we cover everything. So there's a couple more things I'm going to talk about for questions, but DIYer Girl was wondering, what was your primary social media and which one you use most and why? But before you answer that, I want to encourage everyone watching to go into the description and go over to her YouTube channel and subscribe to it right now, because you're going to be putting cool stuff on there, right? Yeah. Well, we just put up a new video yesterday. And maybe I should maybe throw some photography. So yes, please follow. I do have a lot on YouTube. YouTube's relatively new for me. Well, that's why we want to go show her love there. But I've been marveling at her other social media, which I totally suck at. So let her talk about that, and then we'll finish up with a few other little things. All right. Yeah, where I hang out the most, where I'm most active. I always tell this to people who work with me, people in my life. If you want to know what Tricia's doing, you need to be on my Instagram. So Instagram is @creative.costume.academy. That has been the one that I chose. That's where I connected with people. That's where I spend most of my time. If you want to chat with me, if you want to know what's going on in my world, I'm in my stories all the time. I always chat with people on Instagram. I love hanging out on Instagram. That's probably my number one. I do also hang out on TikTok, but that's kind of more when I can. I would say Instagram, and I added YouTube this year in January. I was I want to connect with more people and be able to explain things in a longer form than a 1.5-minute reel allows me to on Instagram. So I'm learning a lot about YouTube, but I have hit my 1,000 subscribers, but I need that watch time to come up. I'm learning about social media, and running a business is a whole thing. But those are my two main platforms.
I would say
Oh,
Instagram and
well,
YouTube.
go Jen. YouTube link does not work, so I'll have to fix it. I thought it was good.
Oh,
So, oh my God. So, all you have to do is put in Creative Costume Academy in the search and you'll
yeah.
find her. But I will fix it the minute we're off. But I do want to.
And hopefully the fit to end. If you guys want to join us for the boot camp, I do have it everywhere, like on my videos all this month. We have the sign up there. On my Instagram, you'll see it everywhere.
Well,
if you DM me the word fit.
That one worked. That one worked.
That one worked.
Because the same Mary is the one who signed up and told us already during this.
Good.
But then she's also the one that told me that the channel link doesn't work. So I will fix it, Mary. I'm so sorry. All right. So Cindy, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She is cosplayer, and she said you should totally come to a Comic-Con, and she shared.
And I grew up in California, where the big one is, and I can't believe I've never gone. And they have Dragon Con now in Atlanta.
See?
And I've made people costumes for these events.
See?
Still never gone. I know that I would love it. I cannot wait.
And she shared your camp with her friends on IG. So that's very cool. Thank you so much. And yeah, and like we've got so many cool comments. I just want to again, before we leave, I want to thank everybody for joining us, because we were so excited about this, and the closer it got, the more excited I got, to share and to chat with Trish on everything fitting, and I wanted you guys to meet her and show her some love. So I just want to thank everybody for coming as well.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Jennifer, for inviting me to come to your audience, to your channel. Like, I'm just, I have so much to learn about the YouTube thing. And then I said, I'll help share on Instagram. Like, that has been my world that I've figured out, but I'm trying to learn on YouTube. And honestly, I just, like, we connected on the Pattern Con. We connected on just, the reason I think that pattern nerd is the term, like, when you love pattern making, and I think the person who really loves pattern making, who really loves like fitting and enjoys that process, like the pattern nerd that I'm talking about, is that you get excited about what is possible, because really anything is possible. But it's the enjoyment of figuring it out. Like, I just want you to know, not only are you the boss, like you get to choose, but enjoy the process. It's not going to be perfect. That's why we do fitting. Like, just go into it knowing that it's probably going to need to change. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Like, have fun with that. And I think that's, what Jen and I connected on in your class, where I was like, I do it this way. How do you do it? And like, not figuring that, like, knowing that, and I think sewing's like that too. Like, there's a million different ways to do things, and just be open to kind of trying different things out, finding what works for you, and enjoy, like, think of it like a fun puzzle that you get to figure out, and you're going to get closer and closer. And in the meantime, you get to make some awesome stuff to wear, like, have fun with it. It's a fun, creative, but also super powerful, like, thing to know about. And so I just love connecting with Jen in that way, and to be like, I just want to share it with everyone. And if you're like into this, we need to hang out. Yeah. We need to hang out. And I think that Jen and I have lots of plans to do more stuff, because it's just fun. Like, every time we've connected a couple of times already on Zoom, and it's always like, oh man, we got to go. Like, we just want to keep hanging out and talking about stuff. So thank you so much for inviting me to your channel. It's
a breath of fresh air, because you see my studio, I'm in here by myself working. So anytime I can get together with somebody else and who gets me and understands and wants to talk what I know what we're talking about, just, I love that. So I really appreciate you.
Yeah.
So.
And I think that's the thing with the boot camp, is that it's a whole bunch of people learning how cool all of this really is together, and we can connect and like share the love, and because we are, so it's such a solitary, especially if you're sewing for yourself, and if you have a sewing business, a lot of times, you're sewing for yourself, doing that too. And it's like, if you get to connect with other people who get it, who like can geek out with you about specific things that the general public doesn't know anything about, like, that's what's so cool about it. So yeah, I love it. This has been so fun. fun. Thank you.
Really been
and
fun.
thank you, everyone, with your great questions and all of that. I love it.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. I wish you all the best and super success in your boot camp. I'm so excited for you.
Thank
so
you. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Well, I think it's time to go. So we're gonna check out. But I just, again, thank you. I will fix the link to the YouTube channel so you can go there and love her up over there, and definitely check her Instagram. I'm always looking at her Instagram. I'm marveling at how fabulous it is because my Instagram is kind of sucky. I'll just go ahead and say it, but I'm working on it. So anyway, yay!
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun over. I like it.
Yeah.
I think Instagram is fun. It's fun to connect with people, and the stories are where I like to hang out because I'm like, check this crazy thing out, and I don't stress about it because it's like 24 hours. It's going to go away.
That's
anyway,
right.
So I can, you know. Well, thank you guys so much. It was so lovely to meet some of you. Creative Costume Academy everywhere. I hope you'll join us for the boot camp. We just have such a blast. And yeah, and be on the know for PatternCon. Jen's going to be there.
I'm there.
So
I am there.
We're gonna have a space to like and really dive in. But yeah, that's coming. All right. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it so
we're gonna
much.
sign off. And thank you for watching. Bye. Boop. Okay, I think. All right, so the stream is ended.